Hi everyone, it's me, Willow. Please ignore the ticking sound behind me. Everything is fine and normal. This week I am talking to Grant, the guide for the actual play podcast Bella's Comet. They run their game using the Arc Doom system, a game all about stopping an apocalypse before a very real timer runs out. Timer. Odd. Anyway, their show is great, and the system they run is hectic, stressful, and as you'll soon discover, an amazing one to help your players make big choices and fast. I made a big choice recently, but I don't think it changed much about me. Is the ticking getting louder, or is that just me? Anyway, here's the episode. Hope you enjoy it!
Welcome, everyone, to the RPG Goblin. I am your host, Willow, and I am the one who asks all the questions because I have a lot of problems with talking and really loving TTRPGs. So this is my way to get that all out. And the RPG Goblin is a podcast where we basically bring on a bunch of really cool guests. We talk about games and basically make it easy for you to start exploring TTRPGs in a fun and easy way because guess what? We have a bunch of fun conversations. And in today's episode, we have on the fantastic guest, Grant Nordine, and we are going to be talking about a really, really, really cool game called Arc Doom with him. And so before we get into like what Arc Doom is and stuff like that, Grant, would you like to introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do, where people can find you, and all the cool things?
Why, certainly. All the cool things. So I'll start with trees. No, I'm just kidding. No, hi, I'm Grant. I am the titular game master over at Game Master Monday. That show, if you're into, if you like Willow's show, you'll probably like our show, honestly.
Yeah.
We play a different one-shot and a different system with a different cast every 2 weeks. So if you've ever wanted to check out a wide variety of indie and big-name TTRPGs, but have been intimidated by their rule books or actual plays that are longer-form campaigns of those things, come on down. We've probably played it at some point or will play it eventually. But I'm not talking about that particular podcast much today. I mean, you probably can't stop me, but my goal is to not talk about it as much today. I'm also the game master and showrunner of an upcoming podcast called Bella's Comet, where we are playing a cyberpunk sci-fi adventure in the Arc Doom system.
Yes, this is so very exciting. And at the time of recording, this podcast isn't out yet, but I believe this is probably going to be out in October. Will Bella's Comet be out by then?
Yes, October 4th. Wednesday, October 4th is our launch day, so it'll be on its way soon. I'm here to talk about that and the system we played that game in because as far as I know, based on my research and my co-producer's research, we're the first ever podcast to use Arc Doom for an actual play. Yes.
That's insane. Oh my gosh, because I mean I've heard of the game and I've seen it a lot and it's been a big one that I've been wanting to play. But I would assume like that it would have at least something, at least maybe someone who did something short form, really.
There's been some short form things here and there. The game's creator, Momatoes, did like a very like limited run YouTube episode or two with another streaming group to show them how the game works and stuff and to play a sample adventure. A video I have watched no less than 10 times as I've tried to teach myself this game to run this particular show. But as far as like actual play, long form, well, not long form, middle form, if you will, podcasting goes, I believe we're the first. And if I'm wrong, well, then send me your podcast. I want to hear it because Arc Doom rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like I think the first thing, just so that we have some context of like what this game is and like what it's about, can you introduce what Arc Doom is for everyone?
Why, certainly. Arc Doom, as mentioned, it is a 2021 tabletop RPG created by Momatoes. It's won a whole bunch of awards. It's a beautiful art game, and if you want to know what the big selling point is for it, if I had to name like one big thing to hook you into Arc Doom, because it's a thing that hooked me into it, especially as a person using it for storytelling purposes, is the game is played on a literal timer. So it's called Arc Doom because your campaign, your one shot, what have you, is ticking down to an apocalyptic event in real time, and you and your party have to stop it. And because it's on a timer, it makes your players not waste any time. You are making very spur of the moment, immediate decisions. First thought, best thought, big swings are a must. The way they have you approach things is really cool and unique. But if I had to put no finer point on it, it's a timed game, and you feel every passing second of this game.
Oh my, that I think was the big thing as well that hooked me in when I saw that it was a like real life timer that like that is ticking down. And so actually, is there like a set amount of time that you are given for that, or do you get to, I guess, create your own timer?
A little bit of both. Arc does give you a template for how long something should take in a game.
Mhm.
So, for example, with Bella's Comet, we are doing, an actual play podcast. So, Arc kind of gives you a general vibe of what to do if you're going to have like more than 4 sessions, which Bella's Comet does.
Mhm.
And if you're doing more than 4 sessions, they want you to, they advise you have 1.5 hours per session as your general timer. Uh,
Mhm.
if you're doing anything less than that, they have their own guidelines. So, for example, let's say you're like, okay, we're going to do Arc as a one shot. It
Mhm.
advises, hey, you're probably going to have like 3 hours to play this, and we advise that your Doomsday clock, which is a whole other separate thing going on in addition to your real time timer,
Mhm.
advances
Oh
every
no.
30 minutes or so. Yeah, two things you gotta keep track of if you're gonna run this game. So if you love spinning plates while everything's going on, this is the thing for you. But for Bella's Comet, we do over 4 sessions,
Mhm.
and in our particular scenario, the Doomsday clock advances every session. So I didn't have to
Mhm.
keep track of a second timer. I just knew after an hour and a half, the session ends, the Doomsday clock advances, etc., etc.
I love that. And especially if you're like a group that is pretty like, pretty like you only have so much time to play and
Hmm.
you're limited on your time, having that almost like like that being the structure of the game where it's like, okay, you play for an hour and 30 minutes and that is it. I actually really enjoy that because it does make the players get into that serious mindset a lot quicker because they only have an hour and 30 minutes to play.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of time to sit and hum and haw and plan and be like, okay, well, what do we know? Who has what? It's just like, okay, we have to just figure it out now because an hour and a half sounds like a lot of time at the
Mhm.
beginning of an hour and a half, and then all of a sudden your GM chimes in and like, hey, it's been 30 minutes already, and you're like, oh my god, but what do we do? Shit.
We didn't go forward at all yet. Hold on.
We've just been talking about soup. We gotta go.
And so you're keeping track of both of these clocks. Are they like is it they're both advancing at the same time, so like they're going to have that like I guess doomsday event like at
Yeah,
the very end at the same time they're going to reach that point at the same time?
exactly right. And the game even gives you ways where you can delay the doom, if you will. So that's the
Mm.
whole point of Arc here, right? So
Mhm.
they give you a mechanic that's called moments.
Mhm.
The moments are what makes up your doomsday clock, and
Oh,
there's
that's
a
fun.
little bit of math that goes into that. So bear with me here, as the person who did a non-STEM major in college explains how math works. So what's up, performance artists out there? Anyway, so in our particular game, in Bella's Comet, we are doing over 4 episodes.
Mhm.
So I'm just gonna pick an arbitrary number here. Let's say 6. So if you have 6 sessions, the way the math works, it's the number of sessions you're planning on doing, and you multiply that by 1.5. It's the same if you're like 2 or 3. So if you're
Mhm.
doing over 4 sessions, you take your number, you multiply it by 1.5, and that's how many moments you have to essentially stop the doom. The number goes
Okay.
down at the end of each whatever advancement tool you're using. For us, it's per session or per episode.
Mhm.
So, if you have 6 sessions you're doing, you're going to have 9 moments to work with, and that number goes down every session. That
Mhm.
number can also go down if you are failing to stop or complete what are called omens.
Ooh, what are omens? I must know.
What a great question. It's almost like you were planning on me asking this. Uh, the game has a built-in mechanic called omens. These are borderline optional, but optional in the way that like drinking water is optional. Like you don't have to
Mhm.
do it, but it's strongly recommended you do it. Um,
Unless you'd like
where
to die,
if
but I mean, like, that's a personal choice.
Oh, it's no big deal. Omens are events that can precede or be adding on to the apocalypse that is coming. So let's pretend your apocalypse is like a volcano's about to go off, and there's an
Mhm.
omen that's like a whole bunch of culty guys who live underground are shoveling coal into the bottom of the volcano to make it
Mhm.
erupt faster. You can choose to go take on those guys and stop that omen from happening, and that'll save you, you know, the loss of momentum. But if a session ends and those guys are still down there, you run the risk of losing more time and advancing the apocalypse.
Ooh, man, that's really tricky. Like, you
Yeah.
really have to be on top of what you're doing so that you can stay ahead, and that, I think, can be very difficult for a lot of groups.
Yeah, this game is the equivalent of it's 11:30 and you didn't turn in that assignment that's due at midnight. So it's all about like time management.
So how, at least from a GM perspective, since you are the one running the Arc Doom game, aka Bella's Comet, how have you found using that system with the, ticking time clocks?
Honestly, like I so I'll put it this way. So having the ticking time bomb just sitting in the background watching the stopwatch as I run the game both fills me with like dread for my players because I know what I have to do and there's no way around
Hmm.
it. But it also gives me like a bit of a rush to be like I know that where the timer is, and I know where they're at, and I know how much time it's going to take them to do the thing, and I got to keep quiet about it, and that's kind of exciting. It also
Yeah.
makes me like never want to do like I don't know, like I won't say this like for certain, but after running a game like this so efficiently, because having that timer keeps you honest and keeps you together as a group, man, I might never play D&D again. And because those sessions can go for like ever. I just finished a recording for another show I did that was hitting the 3 hour mark close
Hmm.
to, and I was like, man, I kind of miss Arc right now. I wish I could just be like, you have to end here. There's no way around it.
Yeah, no, actually that's fair because I've especially found that when I like have come to play one-shot games or have run one-shot games, D&D ones always last longer. Every single time. They always go over the limit or they get extended or whatever when it's like, "Oh, this was supposed to be one game. How did this turn
Oh
into
yeah.
4?"
Yeah, it happens to everyone, and like it's a good thing that it happens. If we're being
Mhm.
honest, if you're playing a one shot and everyone is loving it so much, and you're going for that long that you can tell your game master like, "Hey, can we continue this story so I can go to bed?" Like
Yeah.
that means you're doing a good job, and I'm
Mhm.
honestly really proud of that 3 hour thing we did. It's like one of my favorite things we've made for
Yeah.
Game Master Monday. But also me being a guy who's like I told my wife I'd be somewhere at a certain time and and that time is coming and we're only halfway through this dragon situation. Oops. So
Oops.
Arc
Yeah.
Doom is great if you want to feel all the emotions in a real nice condensed space.
I love that. And so I am curious though, with your experience in running it so far, with it being, timed, how many do you find that your players don't take as many opportunities for like role play situations, things like that that may, make them sidetrack and may, I guess, waste time?
I think that's kind of the beautiful design of Arc because This game, the way it's written, which is beautifully, by the way,
Mhm.
we haven't talked about it yet, but the art in this game is amazing. The prose in it just as amazing. This out of the park feast for the eyes and brain in this game. But
Really?
the way this game is structured is that role play serves a mechanical purpose. So
Oh, love that.
you have these, there are folks out there who are like, I'm more combat focused, right? Or I'm more
Mhm.
action focused.
Mhm.
Arc makes your social game and your role play game part of the mechanics, and you can take damage for not role playing or not playing along or not, you know, talking to the
Interesting.
right person in the right way. So, and I can expound on that, of course, but
Mhm.
there's like multiple ways to do what this game does. There's like two things you got to keep track of as a player. One is called your
Mhm.
blood, and one is called your guts. Which
Mhm.
sounds like the same thing, but it is not. Blood is like, you're very prototypical. Like, these are my hit points. If this number hits 0, then I have to start doing other things to keep my character
Mhm.
standing up. But the other half of that coin is something called guts. So, like, if a character embarrasses themselves in a social situation or acts knowingly aloof or does the wrong thing at the wrong time, is just kind of a buzzkill, if you will, or is too ecstatic about something, doesn't read a character right. There's a whole bunch of ways you can fail socially, which I know is a
Mhm.
dangerous thing to tell an audience of nerds, but it's true.
Yeah.
You can. You can lose guts for that. And if you're at a 0 in guts, you
Mhm.
can also be in a situation where your character is, a pariah, can't do anything, is socially dead, if you will. So the
Oh.
game isn't just like, you have this hour and a half countdown situation, do the biggest thing you can think of. It's also like, hey, you also have to maintain a social presence and play this half of the game correctly.
Yeah, for sure. And like I'm guessing even like be able to work with the community that you may be in, like because this is like an apocalyptic event too. Like you
Yeah,
you need to
exactly.
work with people. Like there is a lot of social aspect there.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a little teaser taste here for
Oh,
what to
yes, of course.
expect in Bella's Comet. But there's many situations where the city of Bella's Comet, where the story takes place, becomes aware of the danger that is befalling them, and our
Mm.
heroes are gonna have to encounter and meet with and talk to certain types of people who are playing a hand in the apocalypse coming this
Ooh.
quickly. So, there are important people they have to talk to and talk to correctly. There's roles they got to make sure they're persuasive enough and say the right thing. And like, listen, our cast is absolutely brilliant. I know every like showrunner is required to say that, but we have like three like heavy hitting women or in our initial cast here who just absolutely crush as role players and are so aware of the story they're telling and want to tell and so into their characters. So you're really in for a treat with some of these situations.
Oh, I love that.
And man, this game and this story and everything we've done with Bella's Comet just meld so seamlessly together. There are moments where we're trying to figure out what we're doing, so we might mess up a time or two in the first initial episodes. But they never let them be daunted. They were always shooting from the hip, knocking it out of the park. So we've got you. If you want action and you want role play, boy, do we got it.
Oh man, I am so excited for this to come out. I can't
Me
wait. Oh my
too.
gosh.
I I can't believe it's happening. Honestly, I was telling you a little bit before we started recording, but this was basically the brainchild of me and Leah from Slay the Stars, just
Mhm.
chatting in a Discord one day, being like, "Man, we're gonna slow down for the summer. We're gonna take a little bit of a break, get our
Mhm.
brains rested and healed, so that when fall comes, we can hit the ground running." And
Mhm.
then we were just like, one of these days we're gonna wind up creating our own podcast together. And then, whoops, that summer of taking it easy was this. Always
Well,
sneaks
I
up on
mean,
you that way.
it's for the better because now we get to hear an amazing story about freaking Bella's Comet. Hell yeah. No, I love
Exactly.
it.
If y'all like
And
Blade
so,
Runner and Jurassic Park, here it comes.
I mean, Jurassic Park's one of my favorite movies. Let's get going. Hell yeah.
Hey.
No, but I love that. And I do love also what you said about, even though like you had some moments of like not necessarily messing up, but like, getting used to the rules and getting in the motion of that, still keeping going, like, still keeping to the game and pushing through it. Because that's always how it's going to be with the new system. There's always going to be
Yep.
rules that you mess up or that you just learn along the way, even if you may be as prepared as you can be at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, in one of the episodes of yours, I was listening to the how to choose what RPG to work with and what new systems to
Hmm.
bounce around in, and it's noted that you can do all the research and watch all the videos and do all the preparation you need, and then the minute you hit the record button, it's like I have never seen this in my life. This is entirely new. I do not know what I have to tell them to do anymore. I have written a cheat sheet. It is out of my brain.
Yes, exactly. And
So
I
there's
I
a
like
little bit of
even
that in our first two sessions.
yes. But like overall, how easy do you think the rules were to pick up for your group? It's going to be from your perspective necessarily. Like the level of difficulty for different games is going to be different for different people, but for you, how have you found it?
We caught on pretty quick. I think as far as like RPG standards go, after like session 2, we had our legs under us and we were ready to rock and roll and had everything figured out. Because session 1 we used a lot to just do the exposition stuff and get used to the act
Hmm.
of rolling the statistics, right? That was our first challenge. Usually, as a GM running a new game, I like to introduce mechanics bit by bit, slowly by slowly, and give them story reasons for why those are there. So, episode 1 is mostly us talking about your stats, and the other half of that, there's a lot of like two halves of one thing going on in Arc. So,
Hmm.
statistics in this game kind of work like you have. Like 5 categories with 4 stats each, not too dissimilar from D&D for various situations. Do you have like knowledge skills, social skills, physical skills, things like that?
Hmm.
But what makes Arc unique is that you can choose how you approach each of those situations, and then you have stats based on that. So, like, you may have like a really high, let's say, like insight check for this game, right?
Hmm.
Maybe you get like a +1 or a +2 in that. But you also have 3 what are called approach scores, which are careful, concerted, and creative. So you can
Hmm.
choose how your character is handling a situation and then roll from there. So like maybe you're in
I
a
like that.
situation where you have to be like really creative in how you get insight from something, but oh no, your creative is a 0, so it might be a little harder than you're accustomed to.
Yeah, so you mentioned you can you have those different approaches and with being
Yes.
creative, like you could hero and it would just be more complicated. It doesn't discourage you from still using stats like that though, even if it's low.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There are some situations where, so the point of Arc is you're using it's a D6 system. So
Hmm.
every boost you get is increasing your likelihood to pass something, which I know sounds pretty intuitive. So like, let's say that I have a character who's making like a charisma check. That's the thing you can make an Arc too.
Hmm.
And I am doing it in a careful way. I'm treading lightly with someone. So maybe I have a 2 in careful and a 2 in charisma. That
Okay.
means I have to roll under a 4 for this to be successful. And there are
Okay.
other situations where maybe I have a 0 in my approach and a 1 in a certain stat line,
Hmm.
and I might tell someone, "Hey, make a this roll," and they're like, "I only have a 1 in that. I don't think I can pass that." So
Oh
there are
yeah.
ways where it's like there are some things where your character just might not be equipped for a situation, so you're gonna need to find another way out of it or approach it differently.
Yeah, creative thinking, like work around it. So I do want to
Yeah.
confirm. So the way the system basically works is adding together, the approach and the stat, and then you have to roll under that number with just one die.
Yep, with just the one die. So
Oh,
you're using
yeah.
a D6 for everything, and then your game master can also set what is called a TN. Think
Hmm.
of it like a difficulty check, if you will, and
Hmm.
they can choose to add something to a TN, like if the situation warrants it and you were doing good, like hey, whatever you roll you can put like one more on top of that. So if you would have had a 3 for this, now the threshold's a 4. In
Oh, I
that
like
same
that actually.
vein, the GM can also choose to take away something like, oh, you would have had a 5 in the situation. I'm setting it as a TN minus 2. Now it's a 3 because the situation is dire and this is going to be a difficult thing for you to do.
Yeah, ooh, I like that a lot though, especially because at least the base system to do it seems pretty easy. Just add the two numbers and roll a die, and then obviously
Hmm.
up to anything that the GM may do. Is there any way for like the other characters to help each other with rolls?
Yes, there is, and I'm glad you asked that because we asked ourselves that question around like I want to say session 5 in our game, and then we were like, we should probably know the answer to that. So this game also really encourages role play for another mechanical reason, and that's called bonds. So
Mhm.
your relationship to your fellow players can literally pay off later on in the form of bonds. So you can,
That's so
uh,
cool.
help someone out in a situation. You can literally save their life. You can give them a
Mhm.
pep talk. You can be their friend. You can give them a kiss on the mouth. There are lots of ways
Switches?
to make bonds. Mechanical reasons for smooches here, folks. We have it all in Arc Doom. Uh, but different things you can do. And if your bond increases with someone, you can say, hey, I have one bond with Willow, for example.
Mhm.
Can I help her make this roll and increase the TN by 1 because we have a bond together? And
Mhm.
yes, you can do that, and that's how you would help someone. If you haven't been role playing and haven't been getting to know your fellow players, you're interjecting yourself into their lives, might be more difficult to help. At which point you can, make certain sacrifices with your own
Mhm.
stats to help out if you want, but primarily it's the bonds thing.
That's really cool. And I know there's a lot of people who have issues with games that have like mechanical value to role play or things like that. But I think it's really cool because it is literally rewarding you for building those relationships, for going out of your way to create, bonds with the other
Exactly.
players and characters. And then
You
you get to be
man,
friends.
exactly. You get to be friends. You get to get to know these characters on a much deeper level. I know there's like a lot of folks out there, and I don't fault them for this at all, who are like, I'm a little bashful when it comes to role playing. I don't
Mhm.
have the way with words or a flourish for descriptions or anything, and that's totally fine. Games like D&D and Pathfinder and all sorts of things have relied heavily on not needing a role play mechanic per se, just
Mhm.
a little cherry on top for what's already a fun game.
Mhm.
With other systems like this, Arc is like role play is not just something fun to do; it is essential to do it. So it's a
Mhm.
good way, if you're a mechanical minded person, you can get over your role play fear by being like, the clock is ticking. I need to help the party. I need to make sure I'm developing social relationships with these people so I can get that little check mark on my sheet and get the
Yeah.
plus so I can use it later. So I think it's really helpful for people who are analytically minded because now you can make very analytical, pointed decisions for who I am friends with and why.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a fantastic thing to view it in that way. It's basically a tool to help get used to role play because I know when I first started to play these games, I started off with D&D and I had a really hard time with role play because it wasn't really introduced to me. Like I'm like
Sure.
is this something that you have to do? And then like everyone else would do it. I'm like what am I missing? But like having something in the game to kind of help guide you, like, yeah, you're building relationships, you're getting to know characters, and then you can help them. That's a much different way to approach it. And I think a way that for me, when I started to play, I think that would have been really helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, I think 70% of people who ever played a tabletop role playing game have had that question the first time they get into it. Like,
Mhm.
do I have to?
Do
Like
I
the
have to?
DM is like, hey, you encounter this kobold in a cave and they look sad. Like, what do you say to make them not sad? And you're like, I don't know. Like, what? I don't know. Do I have to do that? Can I just stab it or something? I thought that was a stabby game, So it's
I only
like,
have a sword in my inventory. What do you want from me?
I don't have therapy on my skills list here, sir.
Add therapy to D&D skills, please.
I believe it's called your charisma stat, and no.
No, but yeah, I think it is. It is a weird thing to wrap your head around if you're just not used to that like idea already.
Yeah, and I like that Arc gives you a reason to do it. So,
Mhm.
and listen, selfishly, it's great for an audio drama format because, like, oh, cool, we're playing the game that makes my players communicate and have feelings and do drama and explore their emotions. So, like, good. That's good audio right
Oh
there.
yeah. Yes, it is. I love that. Actually, I didn't even think about how good it would be for, audio drama.
Right.
Man,
That's my
I love
personal
this game.
curse, Willow. Every time I read a game and it sounds cool, I have to ask myself, does this work for a podcast? And dare I say, Arc Doom works the best for a podcast. It is timed. It makes your characters act. It's perfect, folks.
It really does. Oh man, I need to play so bad now. Actually, I'm curious now, just because you said that, if you do want to share, has there been a game that you've come across that isn't good for a podcast that you find?
I'll give the safe answer, and it's any game that requires like a physical element to the game.
Mhm,
So, like, I love stuff like 10 Candles, for example.
mhm.
10 Candles, I am obsessed with as a horror
Love
fan.
10. Love it,
I
love it.
cannot play 10 candles in an audio format because you
Mm-mm.
cannot see the 10 candles that is element and key to the drama of the game. And it would literally just be me being like, just take my word for it, a candle went out, okay?
I swear, believe me.
Oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's always like floating around in my orbit. Okay, I don't know the name of the original system because I'm on the spot and my brain shut down, but I do
Mhm,
know the adaptation of that system that's been sitting in my shelf for a year and a half, I literally think, and it's called
mhm.
and they were Doter Mates, and and it is a two-player or more. I guess it can be more than two-player, but primarily two-player game where you're playing two nuns who live in a nunnery, if you will, and you are creating and developing a story of forbidden love with each other.
Mhm.
And the way that that unfolds is you remove Jenga blocks.
Dread?
Dread, that's the one. Yes, it's a spin-off of Dread, and I've always wanted to do that.
Mhm.
But alas, what do I do? Like, just guys, you got to trust me. The tower is still up. They're still flirting. It's happening.
It's so
And and
floating.
and if the tower falls at any point, then the nuns are caught in
Oh
a Catholic
yeah.
situation where you can't be a nun and do that thing. So like
That's actually
I
really
have
cool.
it's so cool, and I can't play it on any of my podcasts. I could maybe do a live stream for it, but
Mhm.
then I have to do a live stream.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's worth it.
I'll you know
One
what, Willow,
day.
for you, I'll think about it.
Yay!
Here's what we're gonna do. We'll do a 10 candles live stream in 2024 when I finally have time to sit down and think about stuff, and we'll put you on it.
Fuck yeah, please. I have been
Right.
obsessed with 10 Candles since I've talked about it with Curtis because it's just like, man, this game sounds so tragic in a way that's going to destroy me and I need it in my life.
Can I just say that's the episode that got me into RPG Goblin? Like, that's the one I started from when I found your show in my orbit. And I was like, oh, I also love 10 Candles. I like to hear the show be talked about. Then I was
Mhm.
like, Willow's a delight. I got to reach out to her.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that you did because you were also on my radar. I'm like, oh, because I'm always nervous because I'm like, I don't know if I'm popular enough to reach out to some of these people.
I have learned that all of us in the TTRPG podcast space are all so desperate for attention
Yeah.
and to be reached out to. So at a certain point in my career, especially because our show relies on a literal rotating different cast all the
Hmm.
time, that I just ask. I'm
Yeah.
just like, hey, I saw you, I checked your stuff out, you seem chill and not problematic. Would you like to be a guest?
Of course, and I think that's definitely what I'm starting to get into. Like, yeah, just ask people because usually it's just another nerd. Like like when you break it down, it's just another nerd that you're going to be talking about games with or playing games with. Like
Right.
Either way, it's amazing.
Exactly. If I could tell, listen, as one of the rare extroverts in the TTRPG community, I gotta tell y'all, like, if you're nervous about talking to a creator you admire, or you just want to tell someone that you like their stuff and you're worried they're gonna be a jerk, we probably aren't. We probably are also nervous to do that thing. So like,
Hmm.
if you want to like message Willow or any other indie RPG show you like that isn't hosted by Brennan Lee Mulligan or Matt Mercer, they'll probably really appreciate the sentiment, So just do
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely, because it makes my absolute day when anyone says, like, anyone messages me or even like comments on a tweet or anything like that. Like, oh man, I really enjoyed this episode. I'm like, thank you.
Dog, if a tweet gets more than 5 likes, I'm like texting my wife about it. Like, look, honey, we made it. Like just push the button.
Exactly. It's just the best thing ever. It just makes my absolute day. So yeah, just reach out and say hi. And that's why I also need to. I actually love your Discord because there are so many people that
Thank
just
you.
interact. I'm very excited to open up my own to actual people and be like, hey, want to talk about games because I literally can't stop thinking about them. Please, yeah.
Thank you for plugging the Game Master Monday Discord, my safety net in case Elon breaks Twitter forever. Yeah, if you like what Willow and I are doing right now and just want to talk with a whole bunch of cool creators and fans of games in general, it's pretty happening in space. Not to toot my own horn, but we had two game creators encounter each other in that space, and they created an in-joke in our Discord where our general chat became a Waffle House, and then they worked together to make a game where you play little dumpster creatures like possums and bears fighting each other in the parking lot of an unnamed breakfast diner facility. So, you can join our group and make a game out of nowhere. So it's pretty rad. Reaching out to people, that's literally how Bella's Comet came to be. It was just me reaching out to the creator of one of my all-time favorite podcasts, Lay the Stars, and over the course of several months, convincing her that I am in fact cool and we should do something together one day. Leah, it's all been a ploy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm really
I've
not
tricked you.
cool.
As you can see, I cannot stop talking. No, she knows. she's very aware that I cannot shut up.
That's just the way it is. It's just always got to keep talking. But yeah, I mean, I love this so much. Should probably talk a bit more about Arc Doom.
Yeah, the
Maybe.
thing I'm here to talk about. It's
Yeah.
fine. Listen, I'll talk about every podcast if you let me.
It's just more fun that way. And I do
Right.
have to say, and I think this at least is a maybe a way to commit it. I do really want to do the designing one shots episode with you still because I think that would be awesome. So we should
got all
definitely
day.
do that. Hell yeah.
I'll do it here. I'll do it now. I'll do a two-parter.
Sadly, I've committed to a game of the quiet year after this, so not today, but
I
soon.
understand. Listen, it won't be the last time we encounter each other. Here, I'll make a plug for
Unfortunately
you. Willow's going to be on Game Master Monday soon. Come check her out.
Yeah, playing Paranormal Inc. I'm so excited.
Yes, because she loves horror, so I threw her into a horror game.
Thank you. No, it'll be great. I'm so excited for that. And you guys will definitely be hearing about that when it is out. So yeah, just keep looking on Twitter and stuff and just keep connected.
Remind me to plug it later. Give the date. I have the date on my computer.
Oh, hell yeah.
Find it.
Of course. All right, perfect. So I'll actually make a quick note of that. But yeah, so I don't even know where we were.
we were talking about role playing, and then it was like,
yeah, of course.
what we like as creators, because you can't put two podcast hosts in the same room and not talk about the biz, as it were. But yeah, no, listen,
That's great.
I really love all of the structure of Arc Doom, and it's what because I'll kind of like go in backwards order here. When we were developing the idea of what podcast, like what kind of podcast Leah and I wanted to make, we were like, well, there's no way we can do a long form podcast, and we want to do something that we're not currently doing. So Leah's show, Slay the Stars, is kind of like a dark fairy tale vibe. Playing D&D on her show, and then our show is just a hot mess of a whole bunch of different comedic one shots. So we were trying to find the happy middle of that, and we landed on this idea of doing a mini series and
Mhm.
trying to highlight systems or a system that hadn't really been heavily utilized in the TTRPG space. Because, so many systems are being used, D&D and Pathfinder chief among them. The Fate
Mhm.
Core system is gaining a lot
Mhm.
of steam in the TTRPG community. Shout out to Monsters Rolling Dice and 5GMs in a Trench Coat. I see
Hell
you.
yeah.
Uh,
Love them.
they're great. You've got people using Starfinder a whole bunch now, which is a dope system
Mhm.
if you are sick of like your usual fantasy fare. I have a friend who runs a Doctor Who role-playing game themed podcast, so there's really something for everyone. So
Yeah,
finding a system that like no one
really.
had used before was the principal challenge. And like no one had used before, wasn't like high on our list, but we were like, we should be doing an indie system. We should be
Yeah.
doing something that isn't backed by huge money.
Mhm.
And in my research, I find Momatoes on Twitter because I was already following a D&D collective that they started called the RPGC, which is SEA, standing for Southeast Asia. So it's a
Mm.
lot of these creators of Southeast Asian descent or living in that area, um, you know, hyping each other up to make cool RPGs. And through
Mhm.
there, I find Momatoes, its founder, and then I find Arc Doom, and then I buy Arc Doom because the art from the cover was amazing, and I have poor impulse control. And then I read
Don't we all?
Arc Doom, and I'm like, Momatoes accidentally, I don't know if it was intentional or not, because no one creates an RPG thinking about how people are gonna use it. They just want to make something cool that they like. But
Mhm.
I was like, this is perfect for a short form mini series actual play podcast. So I get excited about the mechanics. I get excited about how combat in this game is handled so very differently from any other game I've ever seen. I get
Mhm.
excited about the social mechanics of it. And I show it to Leah, and we just immediately fall in love with it. And the system was so fluid and easy to understand that when we started reaching out to people who we trusted to be in the cast, we were like, we barely had to sell it. We're like, the game is played on a timer, and they're like, I say no more, I'm in. They're like, that sounds great. So like I'm obsessed with Arc Doom. We ran it. We tell a beautiful story. Clock my bias, but I think it's a pretty beautiful story. Um,
I can't wait.
I'm pretty goofy, like just in general as my default setting. I'm very
Mhm.
much so into creating NPCs whose names are ridiculous puns. The most
Mhm.
recent
Of
episode
course.
we released prior to this recording had two elves named Tinder and Grinder, so that's the level I'm usually writing at. Uh,
Of course.
yeah, naturally. What else would they
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
called? It's Elvish for I don't know, boning. And you. This is the quality you get from me, Willow. And then this game is something completely different for me to do. It's
Mhm.
drama, it's sci-fi, it's cyberpunk, it's a lot of, So
Something
the,
that's
the
even a
two.
little bit more serious, but like you still don't have to take it completely serious as well. Like you can still give your own flair to it.
Yeah, it has its moments. There is one. I'm not going to blow the surprise, but there is one moment after episode one finished where we all just like kind of decompressed afterwards. And my sister, who's on the cast, her name's Jenny, was like, "You were doing so amazing with the drama of everything, and I was so impressed that you had this in you. And then you dropped that one NPC on us right at the end, and I was like, there's my brother. There he is. I knew he was hiding in there somewhere, and I told her that's my one, and I just had to get it out of me.
It was my one. I swear there will be no more.
Like that is the one dumb joke you get out of me. I just had to remind everyone that yes, this is the same guy from Game Master Monday who made them play the game where they all turned into shrews. So it's still me in there, I promise.
No, that's so good. And clearly, everyone who's listening, you have to go check out Bella's comment. I keep wanting to say comment. Bella's comment
You
to
can leave
actually.
comments on Bella's Comet if you
Oh,
want. That would make me feel good.
this is so true. Yeah, now you must check it out to hear what that NPC is. But yeah, no, I like how excited you are about this game just fills me with so much joy right now because I've been so excited about it and it makes me now want to actually go sit down and read it, which I've been dying to get the physical copy of it for forever because it feels like a beautiful book to have in hand.
I'm very tempted. I bought the PDF for efficiency's sake, so I could just like start right away. And
Hmm.
after running it and living in it for, I feel like I've been living in this world that we created together for like, the entire summer. And I was listening to different music back then. I was reading different kinds of books back then. I was so
Hmm.
engrossed in this. And now that like it's behind me and it's been recorded, I'm just like, what do I do now?
What do I do with my life?
Like I miss my sad little futuristic apocalyptic world. What's going on? I listened to a lot of electronic music. I read a lot of
Mhm.
like cyberpunk books, and now I'm like, oh, it's spooky season. I should read horror again. And then I'm like, this isn't Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. What's going on here?
No, I love that though. Just like completely getting in that mindset, just like going into the media and the music and just setting the stage. I think it's just really, really like beautiful to hear about.
It helps if you're an insane person like I am. And if you're not, hey, listen, Arc Doom also gives you like a good adventure you can run yourself. So if you're like, I can't like do the whole method actor shit that Grant's doing here, clearly, you don't have to. The game gives
Mhm.
you monsters off the bat. The game gives you gods you can fight.
Oh, that's
The god.
perfect.
The game gives you a really cool like actual sample adventure.
Hmm.
I've been tempted to just be like to just do that on
Hmm.
my other proper show and just be like, hey, I like Arc Doom so much we're running the sample game that comes with the game. So like,
I think you should
listen,
totally do
I
it. Live in that world again. Do it. Like obviously you love this game
okay.
so much.
I will say Arc Doom isn't designed to be a cyberpunk adventure. That was just me
Hmm.
like coming up with the concept. That's what I always do. I come up with an idea for a story and then I find the system that suits it. And
Hmm.
so that's what this was. Arc Doom itself can be anything you want. It can be modern, it can be sci-fi, it can be fantasy, it can be celestial, it can be religious, it can be there's so much like beautiful inspiration in this game and so many varieties of things you can play. I haven't
Hmm.
even touched on character creation yet that
Yeah.
much, but like listen, there are items your characters can come equipped with, and you have like a point system for how many you can take, and there's
Mhm.
magic in the game. Where
Well,
do I start?
well,
Hold on. I'm losing it.
I
I've lost
I
the thread.
think I think character creation is a good point to start with because I'm definitely I always like covering character creation before getting really into like a lot of the GM side, so we can like go straight into that after talking about character creation because I've been very curious on how that works. Hey everyone, it is time for the midpoint break of today's episode. When we come back, we are going to be starting to get into the character creation of Arc Doom, which is really, really exciting. But if you are enjoying the episode so far and the RPG Goblin in general, please make sure to give us a review anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. It really helps keep this thing going, and I have a dream to create like the TTRPG empire, help introduce people into these games and why they should try them instead of struggling with systems that they are familiar with but don't fit the types of games that they want to play. So yeah, if you also think that is an awesome goal, please support the RPG Goblin and tell your friends all about us so that they can start learning about a bunch of awesome games. Also, apologies for sounding gross. I am sick right now, and thank you to Grant for actually doing the intro to today's episode. You did absolutely amazing. And yeah, it is totally me at the beginning. But if you're enjoying hearing about Arc Doom, again, please make sure to go check out Bella's Comet. It is out right now. I believe it is 4 episodes that are out so far, which is honestly amazing. So please go check out the show and hear Bella's Comet get actually played out because it's an amazing story. So to talk about the next episode that's going to be coming out, which is going to be November 3rd, is going to be the role of the GM with Zachariah and discussing what does that actually mean? What does it mean to take on the role of the GM when you're playing TTRPGs? What are your responsibilities? What are not your responsibilities? Stuff like that. So if that sounds like an awesome topic, that is going to be out next week, again on November 3rd, which I think I'm switching the first of every month of the RPG Goblin to actually be kind of this like TTRPG topic type episode. So it's going to be talking about a topic, a cool thing, and then the rest of the month is going to be filled with games. So yeah. And finally, we will get to our mid-episode promo, which this week we have Roleplay Rejects. If you don't know who Roleplay Rejects is, where have you been? Because they are awesome. Roleplay Rejects is a TTRPG actual play podcast where they do mini campaigns of different types of systems, along with like these side quests, which I was actually a part of one. I was in the side quest of Cottages and Services, which we actually covered on this show, and we have a fantastic time playing as a bunch of little mushroom people and maybe taking over the world with mycelium, but it's fine. So we are going to get into their promo here, which again, they are an awesome group, and let's see what they're all about.
Hello, hello, hello. We are Roleplay Rejects, an actual play podcast that is all about new and unusual tabletop role-playing games. Our show explores various role-playing systems and their associated worlds while being guided by one of the rejects as Game Master. Each story is entirely separate and designed to be listened to in any order, and comes complete with laughter,
bippity boppity, I'm gonna take your lunch money.
and sadness,
I've never killed anything before.
puns,
We struck Yukon Gold.
and whatever the hell this is. So what are you waiting for? Listen to Roleplay Rejects wherever you get podcasts.
In the game, where do I start? Hold on, I'm losing it.
I think character creation is a good point to start with, because I'm definitely I always like covering character creation before getting really into like a lot of the GM side, so we can like go straight into that after talking about character creation, because I've been very curious on how that works.
Yeah, I did a session 0 with the cast of Bella's Comet so that we could understand how character creation worked. And this is a testament to how like simple and easy this is. This was their first time ever like looking at this book, and they were able to create characters right then and there, no hesitation, no give me a week to get a handle on this, no nothing, you know. So it's very intuitive. He says while he stalls for time as he pulls up the book and clicks the character creation section.
I mean, no one has to know. Just
No, yeah, we'll cut this part, right? Well, though,
yeah, right.
You'll let me look smart, right? You'd never burn me, would you?
Oh, never,
okay.
never.
So I mentioned this earlier. The first thing that you really do with character creation, which I think sets the tone for who your character is off the bat, is they start you off with the simple stuff, which is your approach score. So the creative, careful, and concerted stuff that we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. And, you know, those three things are all very different from how, like, where mentally your character could be at. Because if I tell you your character is very creative, you have an idea of what you can build from there, but it doesn't tell you everything about them. Same thing, like, you have a very careful character that can give you, like, maybe they're very anxious. Maybe they've been burned by people before. You have a very concerted character, but they're big and tough. Maybe they're just filled with determination. Maybe they've also been kicked down a few times and want to push through with things. So you off the bat, you get an idea of where you want your character to be at. The maximum number any of these can have is 3. So it's kind of like how D&D skill points work. If you need a frame of reference for the common man, you are given a certain number of approach points, and you can plug them into each thing. I believe you start off with 3, and you can choose to give one score a 2 and another score a 1 and another score a 0. It's kind of the standard array, if you will.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense.
And then, so you get something off the bat there. Then same thing with your blood and guts. Is your character going to be more physical, or are they going to be more social? You get 6 points, and you can plug those into those 2 stats respectively and go from there. And then you have your skill ranks, which is the other stuff you were talking about earlier. So, like I said, there's like 5 different categories, which I kind of like how this works a lot, because a lot of this, like, you have this many points, spend them as you see fit. Some skills are going to be a 0. It's not going to be based on anything like a race or a class. You can be anything you want in that capacity. But how you apply your point systems is how all of these go to. And there's like 27 stats, I think, in this game. I won't go over like all of them, but like, you know, it's 5 different categories. They all have 4 skills within that category, and then you have this other category that just handles all of your magic stuff. So I'm top of the dome here. I'm pretty sure it's 22. unless I forgot a section, in which case it is 27, but I'm pretty sure it's 22. So if you're familiar with D&D, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, and you're used to having a lot of stats, that is there for you, but you don't have to fill every single stat out. You're going to have maybe like 5 skills off the bat that you have some kind of talent in, and then the rest, as you level up, you can start filling in more.
Yeah, and I feel like because it has so many options too, there's diversity in what people are good at too.
Mm-hmm.
Because
absolutely.
It's going to be much harder if you're playing with a group of 3 players for them to all be putting the same numbers in the same stats.
Yeah,
it'd be
very difficult without coordination to build the same character in this game. And if you're not into the standard array stuff, if you're more like, well, I prefer playing my games by rolling a certain number of dice and then going from there, there's a random skills table for you too. So you can just do a first and a second dice roll and plug whatever you like in there. You don't have to do things a certain way.
I love that. Actually, that's fantastic. Because I always think that randomly rolling for characters is the most chaotic and fun time. Because it's like, all right, what am I going to get not stuck with, but what is it going to give me that I then have to make work?
Yes, I'm very much so into just taking something at random and then running away with it. So if you're a chaotic start from nowhere type of person, we cater to you too.
Yeah.
The other fun things I like in this game is you can pick your own inventory and spells. And again, completely different from any other way I've seen this done. So you get a point system for this as well, and certain things of a certain value. So you start off with 30 points to determine your inventory and your spell collection. And everything that you could possibly want to take with you costs those points. So you're not taking into account things like weight or capacity or things like that. It's what can I afford to bring with me? So you can pick up items that can do or prevent bad things from happening to you. The game gives you some examples that you can choose if you want to see fit, but you also have the option to homebrew your own, like I kind of did. We kind of did a half this game, half homebrew for our item selection. So, you can weaponize things like a well-rounded education or confidence are things you can purchase as damage-dealing things. You can also get a flaming sword. No limit here.
I love the diversity.
Yeah, they're we got you covered if you want to do a delightful, coming-of-age story, or if you want a sword that's on fire, you can have either.
Yeah.
Or both. They have a category called...
only in TTRPGs where confidence is a skill that you can get.
Listen, sometimes you're hey, I want my character to be confident, but only if I get a plus boost to my defense. It's okay, great. Well, then you're confident,
Exactly.
God forbid you find the confidence within you and present that as a performer. No, you gotta make sure you have a stat advantage for it.
Of course.
There's also a lot of really cool, fun, random items that the game can give you to just randomly have. They don't do anything per se, but you can use them for your own benefit. If a situation warrants, or if a player picks up something particularly odd and the GM wants to use it for later in the story, perhaps, hypothetically.
Hypothetically,
not saying I did that or anything.
Yeah, no,
could be
you would never.
Who, me? Never. Pay attention. These are divided into 2 categories called supplies and sundries, and also oddities and valuables. Your supplies and sundries are going to be pretty run-of-the-mill level stuff. So maybe you have a bedroll, maybe you have rations, maybe you have just a backpack. My favorite one in this category is a stack of coded letters, a signet ring, and a wardrobe of noble clothes. That's all one item you can carry if you're willing to spend 17 points on it. I just think that's so specific and fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole story right there. Why do you have that?
Why are you bringing a wardrobe everywhere you go? How do you do that? And then you have oddities and valuables, which is, exactly as it says on the tin. They're strange and they're fantastical. That's an actual quote from the book. I can't take credit for that. That's all Momatoes. But this is the weird stuff that you can also bring with you, which can have plot things. They can just be like, things that make your character seem weird. So just some early on examples. You can have the bottom half of a dead donkey.
Yeah,
A thing you
naturally,
can
of
have.
course.
A pouch of human teeth. That's a thing you can have with you.
Yeah.
And if you
Uh-huh.
really want to be a high roller, the most expensive oddity you can collect is a telepathic yak.
What?
Just in case. Just in
Yeah,
case. You
yeah.
never know.
Always need that. Of like every single adventure that I've been on, I've always made sure to get a telepathic yak.
Yeah,
So,
I hate it when I'm playing a druid and I go, I left my telepathic yak at home. I always forget that.
yeah. Actually, now I want that in every single game I play. Give me a telepathic yak.
I'm gonna find an
Please?
excuse,
Yeah. Actually, how much does that cost? I need to know.
That's an 18-point item. So you would be like, okay, I got the telepathic yak and I can get, maybe I have 12 points left here. What should I get,
A snack, maybe a yak and a snack.
Yeah, a yak and a
Yeah.
snack. There you go. Get your yak and your rations are done.
I am set for the apocalypse. Let's go.
No one is gonna mess with me, baby.
So good. Oh my gosh. I love
But
this game.
it's great. So like I've been hyping it up this whole time as like a great game to use for drama. But listen, Ark is very funny. Ark has a sense of humor for sure. And that's very apparent in the last two sections, where you have your spells and your techniques. So you've all played a game before. Magic is a thing in Ark, and the spells they're probably the most in-depth part of character creation, because each spell kind of like does a Digimon thing where they can evolve and be more powerful depending on what you sacrifice to use it.
Oh,
So
I like that actually a lot.
yeah, so I'm gonna try to not get too analytical here, given my whole vibe. But spells essentially have three versions of themselves you can do. You can use it as is, and you have as many instances of that spell as that coordinates to a number. So like there's a spell in here called Trick of the Light, where you can mold light like water, creating auras and illusions. And you can use that spell, and if you're feeling frisky, you can spend some blood or gut points to do what is called the extended version of that spell. That is a more powerful version of it. And then if you really want to get frisky, you can do what's called a ritual. That requires some very high level of sacrifice or having a specific thing that you need to do to make that happen. And it's its most powerful version of that spell. And listen, GMs out there, these aren't limited to just your players. You can also give them to the villains they fight.
Oh, I like that. I can even think of the story things now, like where there's just that perfect spell that, like, that's the thing that will help defeat the cultists in the volcano that are shoveling in coal. Like doing like that being the whole mission, just to perform this ritual, getting the things you need for it, and like going through the entire process. Oh, I love that. That's really cool. And then on the GM side, you can try and ruin someone else's ritual.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I'll give you a little teeny tiny spoiler of a thing in Bella's Comet. So we did our character creation a little different. So there is a part where you can use your points to grab certain spells. I discouraged our players from doing it because we give them their spells in a more random way, in a storytelling way. So you're going to get to the end of episode 1 and the thing will happen. And then all of a sudden these characters are going to be introduced to the concept of magic being real. And also you now have magic you can use, all of whom use their magics to brilliant and dramatic effect. I'm really excited for y'all to get a taste of that. But so we did a little bit differently because there's about 20 spells that you can choose from in this game. So I just had them do the thing, which we'll all learn about on October 4th, and because that happens in episode 1. And then they roll the d20 to get a randomly assigned spell, which I acknowledge was risky, because if they hit a 20, they would learn a spell called True Miracle, which means they could bring your wish to reality. Which means if they got that number and they were, thinking about it for 2 seconds, they could go, I wish the comet was gone, and then the game would be over, So I'll just say this now, that didn't happen.
But
The show,
and that's just fun to think about.
The show did in fact go on, and no one got the game-breaking spell that makes them wish something away.
That's actually an insane spell to put in, like, into this game, though, given the situation with it being a catastrophic event. Like, you could just wish for it not to happen. Like,
Yeah.
how do you, is there a way for you to get that spell at the beginning, or is it more something that you get through, like, leveling up? Because I'm just curious on how that works.
Yes to both. So you
Mhm.
get 30 points to build character creation, right? If you
Yeah.
want to blow 24 of them on this spell and only have 6 to work with for the rest of the game, that's on you. But the spells are also worded in a way that gives both the player and the GM a lot of leeway in how they work. So True Miracle, the only description you're going to get for it off the bat is bring your wish to reality. So what does that mean? Does it mean I can make the apocalypse go away? Well, your GM will have to work with you on that. And on top of everything else, you still will have to pass a check to use your spells. It's not like in D&D where you can say, I cast Firebolt and your finger's on fire. You have to say, like, I'm going to use True Miracle. Your GM can say, okay, you're going to have to pass an Arcana check to do that, and it might not work. True Miracle is also unique because the enhanced and ritual versions of it can get pretty insane and requires a lot to even use it. So, there's like one's like, okay, you can use the enhanced version, but it's going to cost you 7 gut points, which is a huge number in this game.
Of
And
course.
you have to make a successful Arcana check, and then you just state a wish in story, and the guide fulfills it, though they are not bound to follow its intent, is the way it's phrased.
Yeah.
So you can be like, I wish the asteroid would go away. We'll do a Jurassic Park thing here. I wish the thing that would kill all the dinosaurs is gone. The GM can say, like, okay, the asteroid is no longer coming towards you. So that's
you
a
didn't
thing.
say where you wanted it to go.
You didn't tell me where. You can really asshole genie the spell. So like
Yeah,
I know that
can.
game that spell sounds like I could end the game right now, but you could have a GM like me who's like, I didn't hear a yes and so.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great way to interpret it, and that's probably why it's in the game, because I don't think they expect you to just like, oh, I wish for this not to happen, and you to do that, because then there's no point in playing the game to begin with.
Yeah. It's a great example the game gives where it's like you can say, I wish everyone lived forever, but the guide, which is what a GM in this game is called, I haven't mentioned that yet, but the guide can grant immortality to all, but not eternal youth. So your body can just keep aging forever, and you'll never die.
Oh no. It's like a face of Bo from like Doctor Who and stuff.
Exactly.
Like it's gonna be more miserable to be alive for that long.
And then the
Man,
ritual
I like
version
that.
of True Miracle is like you have to obtain a tooth or a fingernail from 7 rare and auspicious creatures. So like the
of course.
ritual versions of these spells are like you have to get these really hyper specific things in story, in character for this to even happen.
Yeah, no, that sounds insane, because I would imagine that would take, like, that's like an end game moment. It's like, we need to cast this ritual version of this spell. We need to be able to collect all of these items. That is like a big goal you're working towards, and that would be really, really fun to like find and hunt down like these different creatures.
And we only get an hour and a half and 4 sessions to do it, so I better get hustling.
I know, right? No, that's insane. Oh man, the character creation in this game is a lot more wild than I remember it being when I looked at it before.
It's so much fun because like I feel like as you build the character, you can like see the story unfold in front of you too. Because there's a lot, I prep stories ahead of time, but I'm very much so into the whole collaborative storytelling thing, right? So if a player introduces something to me where they're like, hey, this is the story you're presenting, here's the idea I'm kind of thinking of, like, does that even work? And if it's not something I previously considered, I'm not going to shoot them down unless it's like, just like this really out of left field and doesn't mesh well at all, which has never happened to me because all my players are hella cool. And they get the vibe around here. But
of course, I mean, lucky.
I know not everyone has been so fortunate, and I feel like especially people who are forever GMs love to jump into games and just do like all the cockamamie shit they've ever thought about doing in their life, to the chagrin of the first time GM just trying to get through this stuff. But we've been very fortunate. I will say Jenny plays a character on the show, and we'll release like art and stories for her. Hopefully by now they've come out. If not, whatever, free spoiler. Her name is Zara in the context of the game, and the city of Bella's Comet that we constructed has all these different like rings and parts of town and areas. It's a city built inside of a comet crater. That's essentially. So cool. Thank you. Came to me in a dream. No, I'm saying. And she was like, I like the idea of this one part of town. Can it be that she's from here, but she moved out of this area to go into a different part of town to do this vocation? I didn't hear you mention this job existing, but I think that would be fun. And I'm like, absolutely, So like, character creation can lead to cool things happening in the story. And, Zara is pretty great.
Exactly. I always love doing that, even with my own games, of keeping the world like my one Monster of the Week game. We have some base locations and stuff, but I'm like, if you guys want stuff, like my players will just invent something like, oh yeah, the hospital's there, or we have a diner here, or we have I invented a random bed and breakfast because I'm like, oh, that would be fun. Like, it's just like add in random things as it fits the world, it fits where they are, and it's just fun to not have everything like set up beforehand and like almost constrain what you can do in the story.
Absolutely. The best piece of world building advice I ever got was from ironically a theater professor I had back in my college days, and they would talk about like, constructing settings and worlds and things like that for like script writing purposes. And the advice was like, your world should be a living, breathing thing that can adapt and react to what's happening around it too. Like, you can't let your thing be static. So like, if you have a player who's like, I really need this thing, is there one nearby? You get to make a judgment call, like it's cheesy and we all make fun of it in role playing, but like yes and or no but really do a lot of heavy lifting in world building. So you can say like, is there a hospital? And you can look at the extensive lore that you wrote, and you're so brilliant, good for you, bully. And if you don't see a hospital and you tell that player no, then you just shut down a potential opportunity there. You can be like, no, but you are in a residential neighborhood, so you can start knocking on doors and see if someone can help you,
Yep, exactly. It's just, there's ways that you can still come up with fun opportunities, even if you don't want something very specific. Like, I do really appreciate that, and now I just want to talk about world building. But
next time. When you bring me on for making one shots, we'll talk about that.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I absolutely love that, and I love that because there is that balance of like creating a story but still keeping it open. It can be very difficult to have them both be true. Be like, I still want to follow the space thing I created, but I do want to have it customizable to the players and to what they want to do.
The main thing, if you're running ARC or anything, is to not, it's that expression, kill your darlings. You have to be open to someone being smarter than you in any given moment, or like thinking of something you didn't think of and being okay with that, and not just okay with it, but wanting to roll with it and be like, we are doing this together. This isn't the subject my friends to my brilliance session. This is a tabletop role-playing game where we're trying to have fun together. So, I think ARC gives a lot of power to the players, and it gives a lot of power to the guide, and they work together in tandem. Because ultimately, I think the guide doesn't want the apocalypse to happen. You don't want your players to lose. But unlike any other TTRPG, ARC is very much so a game you can lose. Because like D&D, there's like no clear ending point. Like the story ends either when you die or your adventure concludes. In ARC, it's like you can live through the apocalypse, and that would be bad. You can role play your way out of that.
Because it would be terrible. But I think that's such a fun concept for games, because that's why I like 10 Candles a lot too. There is a clear end. Like we before we even play the game, we are all on the same page of this is going to happen. In 10 Candles, we are all going to die at the end. In ARC, like the apocalypse is going to happen. What can we do in that time leading up to it to change it, to affect the story, and to try and prevent it from happening?
Yep. The thing in Arc, I'm pretty much that, the subheading, if you will, for Arc Doom. Its big tagline is defeat the apocalypse. That is how you win Arc. And Arc even gives you as the guide, like, hey, here's what happens at the end based on what your players did. And it gives you like end game scenarios. It gives you after the game what to do when that all happens. It talks to you about what happens if the Doomsday clock runs out before you still have these sessions to play that you were planning on, So like, I really just respect the amount of time and energy that Momatoes put into this to think about every possible thing to help both the guide and the players. To be like, this game, for as terrifying as it can be in its premise, with like there's a timer, there's an apocalypse, you have to beat it. It also like just like takes care of you the whole way. It uses very like reassuring words. Everything is easy to understand. It talks about safety tools. It talks about like, hey, if the apocalypse happens, here's what can happen afterwards. Here's some things you can read. And my favorite thing at the very tail end of the book proper is perfect games don't exist. Guiding a welcoming game where mistakes are okay, however, is a good target to aim for. And I'm like, beautiful. Like you play D&D and the book ends when you talk about, I don't know, the monster appendix. this book ends telling you like, hey, it's okay if you fuck up. Like that's what this is for. This game is designed around fucking up.
Yeah. And I love that freedom. And it just like, it's not even freedom. It's just, it helps set expectations, because it can be so easy to be like, I'm ready to lead you through this grand story that I've created in my mind palace, and it's going to be like on the level of Critical Role and the greatest novels and movies. But in actuality, we're just a bunch of dorks sitting around a table, telling the story.
As is true in anything, like, don't take anything you do in the TTRPG space too seriously. You didn't study at the Upright Citizens Brigade. You haven't been a professional voice actor and writer and are paid to do that for 25 years. You are you. Bring you to the table. Let you fuck up. Your mind palace is probably more like a mind Holiday Inn if it's anything like mine. So don't treat it too seriously. This is a fun game, and to have fun with your friends and to simulate some good old fashioned stress. I'll tell you, after session 2 of this game that we play for Bella's Comet, when the timer officially starts and the players have to run through that scenario, they got to the end of the episode with the thing they were trying to do being left unresolved. And I could feel it through the Discord video. I could feel all of the assholes get so tight and then be told that's the timer. And then all of them oh God, it's so real. You feel every minute of it. And when you hit that timer and you still have the omens counting down and you have only so many moments to stop it and that you didn't quite make it on that one particular session, you feel it.
Yeah, oh my gosh. And I can just imagine the buy-in for the game as well. You need a good group that is ready to buy in and get invested, because there is that stress and there's the counting down, and I can even imagine trying to almost plan even between sessions, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to be quick about it. We need to make sure to keep stuff going because we only got an hour.
And that's also the appeal of it, because how many campaigns out there have ended after session 8, 9, 10, what have you, because a baby got sick, or we're going out of town so I can't make it this week, and then it's another week and then you have no idea what happened to all your funny little elven friends. This game, you could bring it on a camping trip. You're going camping for 3 days and you're with your nerd friends. Bust out Arc Doom. You can do 3 sessions at an hour and a half each, still go on your hikes, play 1 session a day, and you've completed your journey, So it's great if you have this mythical camping trip
yeah,
made us. Yeah. Coming from me, the guy who last went camping for his 18th birthday. It could be anything. Camping trip, cabin in the woods. Your buddies are hey, I have 3 or 4 weeks max that I can actually come on Saturdays, and then I gotta go move to Portland or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, bust out Arc, you know, like, hey, I have this great game. It's designed to be played quickly. I literally can't have it go over because there's a mechanical reason for it. And at max, you know, we can play like 4 sessions, maybe more, maybe less. Like it's minimum 1, you know, like it's designed for it.
Yeah, and it's just it just helps with those time constraints. It really does, because it's so easy to be overambitious when you're playing anything else. And it's not that like you can't put those limits of like we're only doing 4 sessions of this, because you can obviously do that, but having it in the game, like it is kind of physically impossible to go over that if you're playing it how it's supposed to be played. You can't do that.
Yeah, there's a literal number you have. You're like, okay, guys, this is gonna be a 3-session story. It has this number of moments in it. I literally can't. Like, if we have fun after session 3, you know, we can just do a new arc game, basically. You know, because after that, the number's over.
Yeah, and it's almost, I can even see the appeal of like playing it, like it has like a lot of replayability, because you can try different situations and you can manage your time differently. Like it's like fun to even try just different things and just to see how the different techniques work and see if you can get better at it, like better at the planning, better at the tactics, better at like just getting into stuff.
And
that sounds really fun.
There's so many flavors. It's so fun. Listen, I played. It's fun. It's fun as hell. You know. Curtain back here, audience. When Willow initially asked me to come on the show, we were gonna talk about doing one-shots, and I was like, "Well, I'm doing this other podcast that I might want to like talk about a little bit, but I haven't played it yet, and it's about one system, and it's not really what I'm known for, the whole one system thing. So I'll think about it." I wrapped the last episode of recording like 2 weeks ago at this point, I think. And I messaged Willow on Twitter and be like, I have to talk about Arc Doom or I will explode.
I remember that. I'm like, oh, yep, nope. I know it's going to be good. Like, just the immediate switch up. I'm like...
I listen, I love Game Master Monday. It is my child. It is my baby boy. It is like, I'm so proud of the work we do there and everything we do to boost indie and minority and queer and people of color voices on that show. And also, Bella's Comet is one of the sickest things I've ever done. So, like, listen, I'm really jazzed about it. Because once Bella's Comet is over, much like Arc, it's over. There's no season 2. There's no episode, you know, one after the one the series is over. Like, once it's done, I walk away from it, and it belongs to the audience, you know? So, like, I'm hyping it as much as I can before the literal timer on my time to promote this show runs out. I'm playing real life Arc Doom in the apocalypse as Bella's Comet ends.
I love that. But even just the mentality around that project, you know, it's like, this is it. We are going up until this point. And I like that as well, because I feel like there's so much media that will just continue to push forward when it's not necessary. Like, just leave it as it is. Leave it where it's perfect. You know, this was supposed to be this one arc, and that's it. Well, I guess pun intended with it being Arc Doom.
I get it.
But, you know, I love that so much. And I know that you did want to dive into some of the combat stuff, which we don't have to spend a whole bunch of time on, because then we can get to guide stuff, which I'm very excited for.
The combat is super simple here. So Arc does initiative, but instead of rolling for it, it's based on who is doing what, where, and when. And I can get a little bit more specific here with that. Definitely not talking to Doll or anything. So
would never stall. So he's 100% prepared.
Not me, Willow. I was prepared as heck to talk about this. Okay, so they do initiative categories in this game. So there's 5 different things that you can do per round, essentially. So your initiative could always be shifting, basically, based on what you want to do in the situation.
I love shifting initiatives. So cool.
The first thing you can ever do is stand your ground. So like you get into a situation, someone's threatening you. If you just want to like stand tall and tough and be there, then you get first dibs on what you do. The second is if you're planning on taking a non-harmful action, you get second dibs. So
I remember reading about this. Sorry, continue.
If you have the book, please open to page 77. That's what I'm reading from.
Everyone, please follow along.
Yep, you will be quizzed afterwards by me, and we'll see if I remember everything. Uh, the third thing you can do is, you can attack or harm others. I like that attacking and harming are two separate things because, you can harm people in different ways in this game. Remember, you can hurt their feelings and cause actual damage. The fourth thing a person can do is use a spell or a technique. And if you're last in initiative, if your plan is to go far away. Arc does have a distance system. I will tell you right now, we didn't use it for Bella's Comet because it's an audio format, and that was asinine for me. But that doesn't mean it's not a bad system. It just means it didn't personally work for our audio format because you're not going to visualize that sort of thing. It's kind of like how when you're watching or listening to Adventure Zone, for example, they never talk about movement speeds in that game, because it's an audio format.
But we're just keep going.
Yeah, Dimension 20 Critical Role, they do it. We don't. But in this game, distance is called heights. So you can move more than 2 heights in this game. And if you want to know what heights are, buy the game. That's my plug. Listen, I'm not going to tell you everything. Don't use this episode to be like, oh, I get the gist now. I can just buy the game. It's $25.
Buy the game, please.
Just buy. If you want to know what a height is.
And they also have a free quick start, I believe, as well. So even if you don't want to go right into buying the game, you want to test it out for yourself, get the quick start so that you can try it out with your friends, emotionally devastate them, and then get the game.
And then really fuck up their shit after you buy it.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's initiative order. And then from there, it's just using the stats you already have to do damage. You can have weapons in this game, and they do have stats attached to them.
Like
a flaming sword, for example. We have a character in the game who is able to summon magical items as one of her skills. So, you can do that. And I won't go too in-depth into this because I'm not really known as a combat guy. But I will say, me not being a combat guy and being very adverse to it, I hardly ever do combat in D&D, for example. But in this game, it's very fun. It's very easy. It's very intuitive. Every type of initiative has its own set of rules that you can look into. So a lot of flexibility in how you can hit someone.
Yeah, I like that. And so I am curious, is it the characters kind of just decide what approach they do want to take for the combat. And let's say there's 2 characters that decide to stand their ground. Do they both go at the same time then?
Yeah. So essentially, you would like, ideally, you would like someone in the situation to be covering each initiative step. So one of the things that the rules can tell you is if someone else is already doing a step that precedes where you are at, then you can't do it. So for example, say someone's like, okay, I'm going to do stand my ground. And they're the first person to say it, right? That means you would have to pick something apart from that, but you can pick anything else from the list from that point. Okay. Now, that's a very loose rule, and it's not something that we always adhere to. A big thing with Arc is that it will tell you that when the situation warrants, you're allowed to break rules around the game. A very good piece of advice I heard from this very podcast is if you're not always sure what the rule is, you can make a judgment call that makes the most sense for your players. So you're not bogged down by reading rules the entire time.
Especially in a time-sensitive game, too.
Yeah, and for recording purposes, I wanted to make sure that we were both honoring the source material because, again, I'm pretty sure we're the first actual play to use it. So I didn't want to misrepresent Momatoes' work. But I also was like, the story is going to be our primary focus, and if it doesn't make sense for 3 people to be in a situation where they're fighting for their life, not every, they're all clearly going to pick step 3. I'm not going to tell them, well, you can't because the rules won't let you, if you, we're not going to say only Zara can hit the guy and you other 2 have to figure something else out. No.
Yeah.
And the game allows you to do that.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. So it just gives that extra bit of flexibility. So you can follow kind of the, steps or do whatever is right in that situation, which I think is great. And I think it's also interesting, too, because I feel like you would have to be pretty fast with your decision making on what step you would even take. Because, again, time sensitive.
Yeah, Conflict is not designed to go for a long time. You've all seen Dimension 20. They have like 2-hour, 2.5-hour episodes just dedicated to fighting. Arc, no, you do not want to be in that situation for very long. This is going to be we either got to get through this or get away from it.
Yeah. Actually, I just got done playing a game of Cottages and Services yesterday, and pretty much the entire time we were just role playing and doing a block party, making lemon sponge cake, and then we finally got to the combat. It took like 20-30 minutes. We were done, but
Ideal. Can I tell you?
Exactly.
Ideal.
No, it was great because it's like you get to experience the fun of combat, of like, it being a big show and dealing damage and all of that, but you don't get it being like D&D combat can tend to be, where it's just super drug out. It's like an hour. I played games that it's like 3 hours of combat. I'm like, no, I can't do this. It's so boring. So especially in big groups where your initiative turn doesn't even come around for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I could tell you horror stories about me completely checking out, blacking out, losing focus during a D&D combat session, which is why I don't run them too terribly often. I anything that requires us to sit and do math and, loosely describe physical actions is not my usual bag. But that being said, the combat in Arc Doom is so fun and intuitive and designed to go quick, because you are on a timer. And, I'm not going to say how much combat's in Bella's Comet, but there is enough of it to get a good flavor of it. I
love that. So very fun. I'm excited. I really want to play this.
I'm sweating. I'm like, I hope they like me.
Absolutely. Okay. But yeah, actually, there is a question that I would like to ask, because, this whole thing is, surrounded by like the apocalypse and stuff like that. Would you say that that players should expect character death or lethality within the game?
They sure can. I would say expect is a strong word. Anticipate, I would say, for sure. Because you can die in this game, but it's also... So I like the way they do it in this game. So there are like 2 situations in which your death can occur. And they don't define death as in like the loss of your life. They define death as in the loss of your ability to do things, or your ability to be of use within the story of the game. So, for example, you could run out of blood, right? You get 0 in blood. You got your teeth kicked out, and you have 0 blood. You're not dead yet, but any further damage, like blood damage, you continue to take now starts affecting your approach scores. So it can bleed into your actual statistical abilities, and if those all hit 0, then your character can't participate anymore. That they don't have the functionality in store. So like you can mechanically die, but your character can still be alive, and then it's up to you and your guide what that means. So like you can say, I have no more approach scores. So either my character is going to be shell-shocked, too nervous, physically damaged to the point where they can't do their things, but still around and have to be another thing that our party has to attend to and take care of. Or you can die, and you can, you can make a new character, you can exit the story, whatever seems fit for that. But, the game is very deliberate in saying, like, this doesn't mean your character dies. Because I think one of the big things to like, talking about safety rules is like, maybe you're playing with someone where death really affects them, and that's a hard thing for them to talk about. So you can say, or, you can have a player who's like, I died, I can't play anymore. Like, well, you still can play. You're just going to have this big disadvantage compared to the rest of the team now. So, they cover that. There's ways to recover from that. There's ways you can continue to play the game, but at a severe disadvantage. So anticipate it, gauge correctly. You can expect that, but that is up to you and your guide.
Yeah, okay. I like that a lot, because I'm curious on how they did handle that aspect of the game, since it can be goofy and it can be whatever you want, but it still is pretty high stakes given the kind of setting around it with the whole, apocalypse and stuff.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, and, apocalypse too can be just about anything. That could be a world-ending cataclysmic event. It
Mhm.
could be like, hey, we're playing a wedding game and we've got about like an hour and a half until our insane aunt comes over and wrecks this thing. So now it's our job to make sure that doesn't happen.
That would be so fun. And that's the beauty of systems like this, where it's like, just the base game, like that's what it's for. You're just trying to prevent something from happening. It can be anything. It really can. It could be something as goofy as, we're just trying to prevent our aunt from coming over and ruining it all.
She's so racist, and you know who she's marrying, and we just can't let her get any of the cake.
Oh
like.
yeah, no. Ooh.
So like whatever we gotta do to keep her from attending this wedding, like that's the impending doom, if you will. So it can be as serious as the premise of Bella's Comet, where a comet's coming to destroy the city, or it can be as lighthearted as that. That's why I like running systems as opposed to like modules. Because like a lot of people were like, here is the story that I want to be told, and that's great. And my sister is so much better at running those than I am. I like being given the skeleton and then putting the meat on it.
Yes, same. I love doing that as well. It's just so fun. But
It
no,
is.
I love that a lot. And so, I mean, kind of going into the guide stuff, did you find that Arc Doom had like good, I guess, did it provide good tools and support for you to be able to build that, like, build the meat on that skeleton and be able to tell the story that you wanted to tell?
Oh, swimmingly. I've been heralding this as like the best system I've ever encountered for an actual play format. And I very much so stand by that. So the origin of the story was me coming up with. Well, I actually shouldn't say that. I had a setting in mind first because I wanted to challenge myself to make something I hadn't really done before. I'm a more comedic writer. I'm more into like relatability and things like that. I do a lot of modern settings if I'm given the choice, or just like Monty Python caliber fantasy stuff. Like
Oh yeah,
that's my
of course.
usual wheelhouse. So when concocting this show, I was like, I don't do sci-fi, I don't do drama a lot. I'm kind of, for some reason, feeling a certain kind of cyberpunky vibe. So, I start hunting systems like that. I initially think Cyberpunk Red, but I'm also like, I don't have a year to read this book.
That's a big one.
That's my white whale as an RPG system. I will get it one day, but it is not this day.
Yeah.
So I start looking around, and then I find Arc Doom, and it talks about stopping the apocalypse. It talks about being on a timer, and then I'm like, what kind of cool apocalypse could befall a sci-fi world? So I love space. I like reading like nerdy. I'm the kind of guy reading like the scientific journals that come out about like new planets and other galaxies and stuff. So like it's on my brain already anyway. And I just watched Oppenheimer as a movie. So like I'm thinking about blowing shit up and also space.
Yeah,
And
of course.
I find this game where there's an apocalypse. And I started reading it, and then the story was literally built out of the bones of this game. So I was very well supported. Like every wild idea I could have had a thing I could use inside of the story. This story has, I personally think, the scariest villain I've ever come up with.
Ooh.
Like a genuinely spooky person to play who has a really devastating skill set. So, and this game gave me the power and the flexibility to role play how I like to role play, and also keep my characters and my players really happy and engaged.
I love that so much. I just have to say, I'm so excited for this freaking to come out.
Me too. Me too.
I mean, can September be like over already, please?
Are you saying you would like me to wake you up when September ends?
Yes, I would like. I love that you just said that. I love Green Day. So
Thank you.
It's feeding.
Me too. Well, I like
So
Green Day up until 2009. After that, I'm a little sketchier on them. But
yeah. No, but I love that it did support you so much. And it's so, again, I just find it really fun to hear you talk about the game and how it's like all the puzzle pieces just like fit together. It's like, yeah, it just built upon itself. Like you didn't even need to like force anything to work.
Yeah, and I've definitely forced things to work for certain games, you know. I've had a good experience with almost every system I've run, which I think is coming up close on like 30 at this point through Game Master Monday. I've run a lot of systems and a lot
That's
of modules.
fantastic.
Thanks. It's a lot of work. But, uh, but you know, I do find myself being like, I have an idea, but I don't know if this system supports that idea. And I did, promise as creator we would do that. And I do want to like highlight the system, but I think I'm gonna have to come about it a different way. I didn't have that issue with Arc. Arc supported every sci-fi thing I could think of. The only thing I had to jerry rig a little bit was the spell system, but I was so proud of the workaround for that and finding a story reason to do that and kind of supporting something we have planned inside of the story to make that even more fluid. So I was happy to do it that way.
Yeah.
And it wasn't me being like, this system won't let me achieve my vision. It was like, this is something that I can use, but I can turn the knob on it a little bit differently and tell a different story within Arc.
No, I love that. And so in your opinion, how easy was it to do some modifications to some of the rules and mechanics like the spells?
I didn't have to do too much of it, which is always a good thing, you know. And finding the loopholes we had to find. Again, the combat situation we fixed up a little bit to make it more fluid for an audio format, and that was really easy because the game tells you you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to adjust what you need to adjust to make it work for your table. And there were just some instances where I had to make a judgment call. Oh, you all want to hit the person who's trying to kill you? Okay, yeah, fair. You should be able to do that. So,
I think that's a fair ask.
yeah, like you all have fight, not flight. All right, let's go. So we were able to adjust to that, and then we were able to adjust the spells thing to make it more dire and unique to the setting. Because I'm building a cyberpunk future sci-fi. Technology has advanced crazy far world, and I toyed around with the magic of that for a while, but I thought the most dramatic thing that could be was like, this world doesn't know magic exists because it's Earth, it's our actual real world here, just in the future. And as far as I check, as of right now, we don't have the ability to have wishes granted. So
yeah, not yet.
We're working on it. So I was like, okay, I want magic to exist, but I want it to exist in a really small way, and I want this to be the reason why this party is able to fight the apocalypse. So that's the story reason why we made an adjustment, not because Arc was making me mad or anything. Just be like, I made this setting, and I want it to work this way.
I love that. And so I am curious, just because I think this is a fair thing to ask, even if I know that people love their systems and games and stuff like that. Is there anything that you have, though, come across where it's like, I don't like that as much within the actual Arc Doom system?
So this is I'm gonna say no. So like nothing in this game drives me up a wall or anything. And most other like big name systems, I can think of something like the movement rules in D&D. Hate them, fuck them. I think
attacks, fuck them.
I think character creation in Pathfinder can be a little too complicated. I have my gripes with other systems, but with Arc, the challenge for me was adjusting how I thought about what players need to roll for and how to tell them to do those roles. Because there is a literal instance where I told a character, like episode 1 I want to say, and it's going to be cut from the episode, so you'll never hear me fucking up, but it was like make an approach score they didn't have, like had a 0 in it, and use this ability, which they did not have on their skill tree, and they go, cool, that is a 0, I can't roll anything. And I was like, I'm doing this wrong. I have to be doing this wrong. you know.
Uh-huh.
So I had to go back and reread. So like, the judgment call there is like, okay, I'll change the role you have to make so you can fucking play. But then I was
Mhm.
like, okay, wait, is Arc designed in a way where there's just, going to be a wall where a character has to do something, or am I guiding them incorrectly? Spoilers, it was me guiding them incorrectly. So they're supposed to be allowed how they approach a situation unless like it's already become clear and they need some guidance based on the scenario.
Yeah.
So like I tell them make an insight check. If they don't have insight, they can say, okay, can I approach this creatively so I can at least have a chance to succeed? And I go, yes,
Yeah, I like that. That's a fun way to do it too. Because then
Yes.
that gives more agency on the players too to use things that they're good at and to just like also just flavor too. This is just a creative person that I'm playing. They're going to think of things in a creative way. And so that's where they're going to approach most of their things.
Yeah, and if they're not sure and they've already described the action to you, like they can say something to the effect of like, I'm gonna try to rob this guy just straight up by knocking him over, grabbing the hat and leaving the place. And I'm going to go, okay, that's a concerted approach for sure, in case that they weren't clear on if that was careful,
Yeah.
creative, or concerted. But like if it's more something to the effect of like, I want to try to achieve this goal, then I can say, that sounds like this ability. How do you want to do this? Yeah, a la Matt Mercer. And then they choose the approach.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. Oh man. And I love that even, you even being able to come to that realization while you were playing, like, hold on, something is going wrong.
Yeah, I'm not so precious where I'm like, no, this is how we play the game for sure. Like if it does, like, I feel like if you're ever playing a game and the game is telling you no, either it was designed poorly or you misinterpreted something. I cannot think of any system that flat out tells you no, do not do that. Like I can't think of a design where like a creator would give you stats and approaches and skills and spells, and then there would just be a wall where you can't use those. So like I had to have been doing it wrong.
And I love that as well, because most people when they're creating a game, they're creating options for you to use, like to then limit it, like feels counterproductive. Like why would you limit the fact that they could use this?
And some games do it on purpose to hype up the drama, but I can't think of any system where it's like, hello, these are all of your skills. You cannot use them if you do it this way,
Yeah. You lose them. They're not yours
Yeah,
anymore.
can you imagine me like, hello, DM, I have a +0 in my intimidation. Can I still use this? No, you cannot. It is 0. Like, what? No.
You should at least give me a try, please.
Like, can I try? Like, no, you cannot try. I will not let you. Fuck you. The game said no. Like, no game says no.
Yeah, exactly. And I always love playing games, especially as well. Like, I will full on roll and do things that I'm not good at because I'm like, it makes sense for what my character wants to do. Like there's still a chance of success. Like, it's not just end all be all, because I know there's one game that I played, The Witch is Dead. And I know that one of the players there just wouldn't roll with anything other than the top stat that they had. And I'm like, where's the fun? Like,
yeah.
Where's the risk?
Love The Witch is Dead. Love everything Grant Howard
it's so fun.
Just again, a game that is absolutely never telling you no. Even if it seems impossible, this game is going to give you at least a 1% chance of getting out of this situation.
Exactly, and that was what I was when I was a magpie grabbing a kitchen cleaver to fight a butcher.
We've all been there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was like a 9. I had to roll a 9 or higher, and I rolled a 10. I'm like, I am the master of knives. So...
and I cannot be stopped.
Exactly. I will engage in knife to hand combat with this.
If anyone needs me, I will be doing violence. Thank you.
Exactly. No, but it's just more fun to just try things, at least for me. I know definitely people have their own ways of playing games and what they're comfortable with doing. I just think it's more fun to just at least see if it works. Because if it does work, then it's awesome. If it doesn't, then now you know. But it wasn't necessarily that, no, you can't do it. It was at least a try. I like it a lot.
And it's by design. Yep.
Exactly. It's by design. But I think that we I mean, I think though we're getting close to wrapping up the episode because I don't want to hold you on for too long.
Oh no, listen. I think it's a good point to stop at. I think it's very clear. Arc is a cool, flexible, unique system. There were things we didn't get into, which is completely fine. Like how some things can take real time minutes to achieve, and that takes time off of your clock. But like again, if you're curious at all about anything we talked about here today, I don't work for the RPGC. I just follow Momatoes on Twitter. I think they're only aware of my existence in that they have shared that Bella's Comet is in fact happening. So like when I come on the show and talk about this system, it's because I genuinely do love it a whole bunch, and I genuinely think that it is worth every penny you can spend on it. They even like created a beautiful Excel sheet to keep track of your characters if you want. So
I
like
love that.
I could sing this game's praises for a runtime of 5 episodes if you'd let me, but like pick it up. It's so much fun. That's me saying this. The guy whose reputation is staked on playing as many systems as possible, for me to reach out to Willow to be like, I need to talk about just this one thing. Like that should say something.
It really should. And again, make sure, get. I heavily encourage you to get Arc Doom, but if you don't have the money to do that, again, they have a free quick start that you can at least try it out and see if you like it, and then make that decision later on if you're able to get the game, which links for the quick start and the actual game will be in the description of this episode so that you can be able to get it or go to it a lot easier. But
I did. I got the quick start first. That's what got me hooked. That's how I checked it out.
It's addictive. But no, absolutely. And so I think we are, though, at the end here. So I'm going to let Grant have one last shot of just promoing and saying all the things before we officially wrap up. And then, so I'll hand it over to Grant.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Willow. This was so much fun and delight talking with you. Like I mentioned, I'm Grant Nordine. I run 2 podcasts now. So I run Game Master Monday, which comes out every other Monday. Like we said, we play a new one shot in a new system every single episode, and no 2 casts are ever the same. Around the time this is going out, I don't know the exact date, so let me just talk to you about October. On
October, I think, ish. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. So here's what's happening this month. October 2nd, we're playing a game by Rude Dickey called I Want Your Bite. It's a vampire dating game. Check that out. If you want to hear more of me and Willow being goofballs for an hour and a half, most likely, we are playing a game called the Ghost Storage Facility, played in the Paranormal Inc. system. That comes out on October 16th. And October 30th, we're doing a live stream on Twitch. We're playing Parsley. I am subjecting my sister and Kay from Dude Where's My Drift and Leah from Slay the Stars to a RPG game that is based off of old 80s text adventures, and they're going to be playing horror games in that system.
That sounds so cool.
It's going to be frustrating and cool. That's how it's designed, baby. And then, of course, the other podcast, which I've talked this whole episode about, is Bella's Comet, played in this very system, the Arc Doom system. The first episode comes out October 4th. And is going on a 12-episode run every single Wednesday. So check us out when that comes out. And of course, download the free version of Arc Doom and become addicted and go on a camping trip.
Exactly. Wise words to end us with. But yes, please get Arc Doom. Get the quick start. Again, will be in the description, along with all of Grant's information for Twitter, where you can find his podcast, all of that good stuff, along with also Bella's comment. God damn.
You got this.
Bella's Comet. There we go. Will also be in the description as well, so that you can check it out when it comes out, because, well, it will probably already be out, so check it out now, because it's going to be amazing. If you aren't already convinced to listen, then I don't know why you wouldn't think it's cool. Like, it doesn't make sense.
If we didn't convince you here, we'll never convince you, and I'm at peace
exactly.
with that.
Exactly. But yes, thank you so much, Grant, for coming on and talking with me. And thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you had a great time, and just go and play more games, please. Craig.